just in terms of the sorts of struggles that these populations do face when they're living somewhere like Malaysia. Obviously they're very vulnerable, and I'm wondering what are some of the main themes that cropped up over the course of your fieldwork?
I think there's lots of sort of experiential, personal issues we can talk about in terms of well-being, in terms of security. But I think in terms of larger areas that affect the majority of people, there's sort of three main areas. The first one is work, because the UNHCR can only really look after the most vulnerable of people that they can support because of their limited resources. So there's about 150,000 registered refugees or people in the pipeline with the UNHCR, plus thousands of others who don't know about registration or haven't yet. So let's say, up to 200,000 people in that boat. They have to work in order to survive. And so it's sometimes easier, sometimes harder to find work. But in any case, it makes them quite vulnerable in whatever workplace they are, because they're not there legally, they don't have work rights. And so they're quite vulnerable to rent seeking by their employers, not paying them or not paying them what they'd agreed. And so there's a lot of conflict there, I guess, or issues. And they're so dependent on having a job in order to have a place to live and food to survive. So work is the main issue in order to survive. So most people don't speak Malay, most people don't speak English. How do they interact with anyone?
Malay ho ansung le Malay ho itlong pati kan the so talo ho kha restaurant le ki ro an ina ka he petlan an chin na chu ma kha kan chin ka e adan chu hitlo chu kan the khola.
Well, most of the work is manual labor, construction sites, working restaurants where you don't need a lot of skills that are beyond language and some basic maths on calculating a bill, for instance. There isn't a highly skilled labor market for them, because you'd have to be there legally to actually get those jobs. So the only jobs they can get are the very low-skilled jobs. And even if you have a degree, even if you're a doctor, in Malaysia that means nothing. You start from scratch.
Kan ki azate thamli ngasi miman tatasi imat tatasi le maka kulanga kam kulanga amaka kimarian katuna boss asi maka kimani boss chungakan kalami asi ki family in to rian katuna thakhan man thlani ma kha zate aphyadi thum man thli ma khan phadi chu ban tu kan to la chu hi kan khwamin te kan zate kan hi ban tu hi kan khalo ba
acha chun har mete nu chu kan thin phang kan ti zonga in ka kan ren kum in chung te kan umi ni zong na kan lin lo ro zong na kan so lo in chung te ri rol kan e kan ni tu kho mi chu alianga kan ma ten rol kan bai cha phe me pa na ri an tun te ka ri an tun mi te kan e pa cha chun ren tuan peng kha sa ka we ren tuan rong pa si pa cha chun har deu.
The second issue is health. Healthcare is again really important, and there are only 2 healthcare providers who specialize on providing healthcare for refugees. One grew out of a Catholic associated organization. The other is Tzu Chi, is a Buddhist organization, so they both have religious background, but they give their services to whoever rocks up. But they're relatively small and they can't see a lot of people, and they certainly are not hospitals, so they're limited in what kind of healthcare they can provide. There's only one healthcare provider that specializes in psychological issues. That's Health Equity Initiative. They're doing a great job, but again, limited resources, just not enough psychologists to deal with trauma. Most of these people have fled persecution, so trauma is a big issue. How to deal with that? So healthcare is relatively poor. They can go to hospitals, and especially if they're registered with UNHCR, but that's expensive and also very problematic for people who aren't registered yet. And there have been recently cases where people were actually arrested in the hospital. They were giving birth in hospital, and then afterwards the mother with the newborn baby were taken to a detention center.
Cool.
So it's a very, especially if you're not registered, very vulnerable and very problematic to access Malaysian healthcare. And the third one is education. Because they don't have a legal status in Malaysia, children cannot attend Malaysian state schools. And so UNHCR has helped set up some schools, and refugee communities themselves have set up schools to give a basic kind of education, often focusing on things like maths and English, and very rarely more because, again, limited resources. Who's going to pay for the teachers, the materials, the learning resources, the school building? It just adds up, and it's, again, a huge endeavor for refugee communities themselves to create an education system that runs parallel to the Malaysian education system. With five schools, how many students do you have?
386 students. Yeah. So it's a lot. I can say it's a lot. Yeah, a lot of students. Yeah. And without any sponsorship, we are going forward, but it's really challenging. It's really hard things. Yeah. Okay, my name is Chumta. Yeah, I'm from the Myanmar, Chin State, and I'm currently chairman of this CSO, Chin Student Organization. So I'm teaching science here, yeah, and I've been here almost 3 years. The most challenges for the children are, as I said, they don't have the formal education system here. So although they want to go to the school of the government school, but they cannot since they're a refugee, and that is one of the things that they are facing.
It's especially bad for people who are trapped in Malaysia for a long period. They have some basic schooling, but they never get a certificate, so they never have a chance to take that further.
So final zo kan tui Malaysia sen kana phun kau nai kan thei kau nai kan fina kan pasana so maka azalo cha kan tu na tin kan khau lo so rin kan tuan mi hi kan tu na te kan to khau lo so zan rian long si kan za te hi.
I'm interested to know about how it is that an anthropological perspective can frame these sorts of issues differently, or how that could be particularly useful in terms of addressing issues that are faced by refugees.
I think one thing anthropology brings to the table, we've seen that throughout the course, I hope, or shown that throughout the course, is that we're there living with the people that we study. And that gives us a different appreciation of those struggles. It's one thing to describe, they don't have enough schools, or education is poor, or healthcare is problematic. But if you've actually accompanied people to a healthcare clinic, if you've actually gone to the schools and sat there with the children to see the materials that they use, if you lived with refugees in what some people would describe squalor-like conditions, where you're competing with rats for the floor space at night, and where you don't have running water, and where every day is a struggle to put some food on the table, that gives you a different perspective on what that struggle actually means, and what sort of self-reliance mechanisms could be implemented, what people could be doing, because it's always easy from a desk, to write recommendations. Here's what we should be doing. Here's what we should be doing to help them. It's something else to walk a mile, or even just a couple of steps in other people's feet, maybe not even shoes.